Hi, everyone, and welcome to another conversation that is part of Ethisphere's Equity and Social Justice Initiative, the Forum series. I am Erica Salmon-Byrne, Chair of the Business Ethics Leadership Alliance, as well as one of the Ethisphere sponsors of the Equity and Social Justice Initiative. And it is my real pleasure to have with me today David Huntley and Angela Santone. Angela, did I say your name right?
You did.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
From both of them from AT&T. David has been kindly serving as the chair of the Advisory Council for the Equity and Social Justice Initiative. And so I have had the pleasure of getting to know David and the AT&T work a little bit more. And I am so delighted to have the two of them here today to have a conversation around data and transparency and how to think about being as open as you can be around your particular metrics and your goals. I'm going to let the two of them have the bulk of this conversation and then come around at the back end to talk a little bit more about what we're going to be bringing to you as part of this forum series. So David and Angela, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Appreciate that. And hello, everybody. It's good to be with you. Angela, thank you so much for doing this. When Erica and Tim approached me to chair this initiative, I was really excited. I was excited because it was an opportunity to work with my colleagues and peers in a very, very important initiative to share best practices and to really make a difference. And so, Angela, I can tell you, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing at AT&T. And it starts with, a conversation about transparency that we had really early on, not just this year, but it's a part of an ongoing conversation that we've been having about race and equity and social justice over time. But I think in terms of being transparent, I think COVID really caused us to think about how we communicate with our employees. And if you don't mind, can you let's talk a little bit about the transparency journey that we've been on that led up to the publishing of some of our numbers.
Sure, happy to talk about it. So I think one of the key components of to be aware of is that AT&T, one of our key values is to stand for equality. And so what we have found is that whenever we're having discussions about anything internally or externally, we let our values guide our decision making. And so with the events of this year, you mentioned COVID, also with the untimely death of George Floyd and others, it really changed the discussion, I think, more so than I've seen in my 20 plus years in HR. And what I can tell you is, as we were talking about it, in today's world, we live in such a world of transparency. David, if I'm, friends with you on Instagram, I can see what you had for dinner last night or where you went to dinner.
Right.
Because we just live in this world where everyone shares so much information. So I think there's this natural curiosity and inclination of our employees to want to know specifics around, the race and ethnicity and the makeup of our employee base. And so we had these discussions. I can tell you, as I mentioned earlier, after 20 plus years in HR, I've been on different sides of the conversation numerous times. And it really is about, the timing, and it's about the leadership. And so John Stankey, as our CEO, really made a decision to ensure that we were going to provide this information to our employee base. And actually on July 27th, he sent out an email to all employees sharing a breakout of our employees from the standpoint of our leadership, our management, and our bargain for employee base. So when you have that type of information, that provides a level of accountability that is, different than what we've had before. And so this is information we shared in July with our employees. We share it with our board on an annual basis. We're sharing the metrics with our senior executives every quarter. And when you have that type of transparency, it enables us to be even more aware, accountable, and to take more action to ensure that our employee base represents our customer base. And so what we're really focused on right now is also closing that gap between our senior leaders and our front line. So we have great numbers. We've been, awarded and by different companies from a diversity standpoint, but we know without a doubt we have more room to change and to grow. And, it's something to me that's more of a marathon than a sprint. And so, but the accountability and having that transparency is really powerful and forces change. And so I'm really excited about where we are right now with the information we've shared. And this is an iterative process. So what we shared this year, we're going to continue to look at it, reevaluate it, ensure that we're sharing information that enables us to be transparent and also accountable.
Angela, many people have said to me, David, was it a hard decision for AT&T to publish those numbers and have conversations around them? I respond, Angela, oftentimes by simply saying, it's almost as if how could we not? And the reason I say that, it's because if you remember, we had such gut-wrenching conversations with our internal employees at all different levels, and it was such a compelling moment to hear those stories. Can you also talk a little bit about the power of storytelling and what that's done to move the needle with respect to just this being something that's driven us to look at this more than just a numbers game, but look at it as something that really helps to move the business?
Yeah, so I would reference a 2016 employee conference that we had where Randall Stevenson, which at the time was our chairman and CEO, really talked and shared a personal story and his experience. You can actually see it on YouTube. An employee posted it, which, was something that I think really had a significant impact on our employees. But he shared a personal story about a friendship he had, and he really had a hyper focus on, for all of the employees at AT&T, to move from tolerance to understanding. And as a result of that discussion, or that at the employee group conference, we really had an outgrowth of green shoots from a standpoint of individuals deciding to create opportunities for other people to tell their stories. So we had a days of dialogue that happened where individuals could facilitate discussions. We also had something called Dine, where individuals get together, and literally the entire purpose is to bring individuals together that don't know one another to share their stories. And I've participated in both. And what I have found is we have much more in common than not. And I think whenever you have an appreciation for the experiences that we all have, the challenges, the moments of excitement, the families, just our stories overall, it really changes the way we look at one another. And so I think the more that you can tell stories, the more of a connection and the more appreciation you have for your colleagues and for your just for your fellow humans. It really makes a difference.
So Angela, what advice would you give to companies who are contemplating publishing numbers and are maybe because we hadn't done it, and all of a sudden, it's interesting. Once you do it, it's like ripping a Band-Aid off, and you almost say, why didn't I do that sooner? I mean, it just seems like something that we should do. What advice would you give people who are thinking about it and maybe on the fence?
Yeah, so I would say, you got to make sure that you, as an executive team, it really starts at the top. So you need to ensure that your CEO is fully on board and is willing to, have the conversations with employees, because listen, we shared this information and we had employees that some were concerned. Some were saying, you know what, I don't want to be in a position or to be, they were concerned about the opportunities for them being based on their demographic or their ethnicity and not based on their merit. Obviously, as a company, that is not our intent. We always want to select the best talent for the job. We're always going to do everything we can to ensure that we remove bias from the process. And we're going to provide all types of training and development to all employees to ensure they can compete effectively for all opportunities. But I would say that ensure that as an executive team, you're all, joining hands and you are, focused on ensuring that you're doing this for the reasons, to provide that accountability and transparency, and be willing to have the difficult conversations with employees. Because I can tell you, I've been, a little surprised at times how some people have reacted to the data. But what I appreciate is the fact that everyone is engaged, we're having the discussions. And without the data, I think sometimes it's difficult to have those discussions. In a previous role that I was in a few years ago, we actually had the exact same debates about whether or not to share the data. And for different reasons, we made the decision not to. And I can tell you, some employees assumed that we were trying to hide something, which wasn't the case at all. But I think that, whenever you share the information and whenever you're willing to put the information or the data out there, it changes the dynamics of the conversation. There's no longer about, what are you trying to hide? It's more about how can we collectively work together to try to have an impact and change for the better. And so we really, as I said earlier, want to represent our customer base. And the way we can do that is by being transparent and ensuring that everyone knows where we stand as a company and what our demographics are and where we have opportunities.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. This is a journey that we're on. And I think that as we continue on this journey, the next question becomes, okay, what do we do now that the data is out there? As a peer, as a colleague, John has asked us for, what are your plans? What do you intend to do about some of the numbers that indicate that we have work to do? So, what I'm encouraged by is the fact that as we embark on this journey with everything being out in the open, I just think that there's more engagement from everybody, from the not just the leaders of the business, but for those saying, hey, I can help you solve this, or I can help you with that. And we're getting a lot of help and advice, and I really like the engagement that I see. And I don't know about you from your perspective, if this is going along the way and at the pace that you anticipated, I'm very encouraged by what I've seen so far.
Absolutely. Whenever John shared the data back in July, we were very clear about where our areas of focus were going to be. And the first step was awareness. And it's really a focus on systemic racism in our country. And so really creating and providing information and learning opportunities to our employee base. So having that awareness is critical. The other part being accountability, which we just talked about. And then the next step is action. So I agree with you, David. I've actually been very, excited to see how many individuals are really engaged and are contributing ideas, contributing to the action plans that have been created. And I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago for about 2 hours where senior leaders were sharing their plans collectively, like a roundtable discussion about the steps they're taking, and they were sharing different ideas with individuals or with their peer group. And people were saying, like, that's a great idea, I hadn't considered that. And there's a lot of different opportunities, whether it be through not only having diverse slates, but having diverse panels that are interviewing those slates, opportunities to ensure that we are providing development opportunities and different things maybe than we've considered before. From a standpoint of exposure, a lot of individuals are like saying, I appreciate the chance to be developed, but I also want to have the opportunities or the exposure to actually take on more responsibility. So ensuring that individuals are paired and have sponsors that are aware of the work they're doing. So it's amazing to see how leaders and employees are really coming together to provide a holistic approach for our company to really make an impact. And it's not just something where we're saying we want to see, a percentage of increase in one area. We want to see a collective increase. And so we're really working collectively to ensure that when we share the data in 2021, that we're going to be able to see the fruits of our labor and see impact in the right areas. So I agree with you. I'm very excited. And the senior leaders around John's table have really, John has set the expectation, and I think everyone's really stepping up and engaging in the right way to ensure that people have opportunities for promotion, exposure, and, to make an impact.
Angela, one of the things that I think that's come out of this this effort, this initiative, this journey that we're on is an awareness about the value proposition that diversity brings to the table in terms of allowing us to be more competitive in the marketplace. I think that connecting some of those dots, we're able to make this more than just a numbers game. And we're talking about this value of diversity in ways that I think we probably haven't in the past. And it's good and it's healthy. The other thing I would say is, a lot of folks in the position of being a questioner would say, okay, Angela, what are the challenges that you're facing and what obstacles? I have to tell you, it doesn't feel that they're challenges. It doesn't feel as if they're obstacles. And the reason I say that, and maybe, you can push back if you disagree. The reason I say that is because I have this feeling that we're all in this together, and that from whether it's law enforcement reform, whether it's equity in healthcare, whether it's in whatever the arena is right now, I think it's a time where we're all holding the mirror up to ourselves and we're saying, we're better than this.
Yeah.
We're absolutely better than this. And so I don't feel as if this is a challenge for us right now, or there are obstacles out there. I think that what I've been encouraged by is the way everybody seems to be leaning into this and with a deliberateness to solve it, to make us all better.
I completely agree. And I'll reiterate the fact, I think it makes such a difference when it comes from the top. So having our CEO really be an individual that values diversity and fosters inclusion, it makes a huge impact, because people know that this is not just a nice to do or nice to have, it's a business imperative. And we will be more successful as a company when we have different individuals with different backgrounds and cultures and diverse views. It just will make us more competitive. And the other thing I'll add to that, as you know, David, earlier this year, we actually launched a new culture model. And there are 4 tenets that are a part of that culture model. And one is serve the customers first. The other is move fast, act boldly. And the fourth is win as one. And winning as one is where I really see the focus for us when it comes to diversity and inclusion. We can only do this if we're working and rowing in the same direction. And John and our executive team has made it very clear that winning as one is not, once again, not a nice to have, it's a requirement. So I think when you have everyone, once again, moving in the same direction, buying in, seeing the value, knowing that it's critical for us from a competitive perspective, to me, I agree with you. There may be obstacles from a standpoint of, when you share information, people always want more. It may elicit more questions, but I think those things actually make us better. So I'm like, tell me more, give me feedback. What else can we be doing to make this better or different? There's a cohort of employees that I meet with on a regular basis to get their feedback when they see information or hear things, as my own little focus group. And I think for all of us to have those different types of conversations at all levels in the company are really important, to have our finger on the pulse and know where we need to maybe make a tweak or make a shift. But if we're winning as one, we're going to only do that if we have all different types of people, ethnicities, cultures, backgrounds together, collaborating and driving us forward.
Angela, when we had our first initial meeting of the council, on this initiative. We went around the I won't say the room because it was a virtual room, but we went around the horn and we asked people to talk about what they anticipated, what did they think success would look like, when we came through this, where we're just going to pass around some best practices. And, I kicked it off by saying success, I think we need to put a big, bold marker out there and say success is when we don't have to have initiatives like this. Success is when, we're working as one, we're doing the right thing. It's not something that we have to lean into. It just happens. And I think that putting a bold marker in the ground, I think all of our companies and our initiatives, before we were making this kind of progress, but I think now my sense that I'm getting is that people are really trying to solve this. They're trying to say, we don't have to, we shouldn't have to have these programs. This is the way we should act, as in the ordinary course. And so, what are your thoughts about what does success look like to you in terms of this journey that we're on?
I completely agree with your definition of success. We're not having these conversations any longer. I also think that people having a complete awareness and understanding of the challenges that have been in place, or systemic racism that's been in place for a number, for hundreds of years, so that we have the ability to recognize it and not only say that we're, for me to say I'm not a racist, to be an anti-racist. So what am I doing to really ensure that collectively I'm doing whatever I can to have, to ensure that we have equality across the organization. The other thing I would say is that from a standpoint of diversity, I've heard someone say it in a session a couple of weeks ago, diversity is being invited to the dance, inclusion is being asked to dance. So when you think about it from a standpoint that we're all out there together, right? Working together, not concerned about, where I'm from, my background, the color of my skin. We're working on this collectively and working towards a common goal. But we're no longer having these conversations. I totally agree with you. And being in HR for now over 20 years, I can tell you that if I can get there in my, in the next few years before I go and ride off into the sunset, I think I would consider that to be a huge accomplishment. But I do think it takes time. But this does feel different than any other time that I've had these discussions or been a part of a company with this type of focus. It feels very different.
Angela, thank you so much for spending time today to share your thoughts. I'm very excited about what we're doing at AT&T, and I look forward to the exchange with other companies to understand what they're doing to move the needle in this regard. And I think this is a key time. I do believe that some of the things that we are doing will be sustainable. And I thank you.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Angela. Really, really appreciate the time that you both took to walk through that. Anybody who's interested in taking a look at the AT&T report itself to see sort of how they set the narrative, what they chose to share, it's publicly available, and the link is showing up right now under my image. And we do encourage you to take a look at it. As I said at the top of the conversation, this is going to be an ongoing dialogue that we're having. We're hoping to find other companies that are on this transparency journey that are ready to come out and talk a little about where they found their data, how they decided to share their data, what the reaction has been to sharing their data, and where they're going from here. So please stay tuned for much, much more. You can register for all of the forum conversations, and you'll get notified when they are posted to the initiative's website at the initiative's website itself, which is also now showing up under my video image so that I don't have to remember exactly what it is. But Angela and David, really appreciate the fact that you guys were able to kick this off. And I hope that you are well and continue to be well in these interesting times in which we are all living. And maybe someday we'll be able to have this conversation back in the same room. But in the interim, until we're in that happy place, I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And be well, everybody. Stay safe.